Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another game of the Sept of the Howling Winds. And today we are going to be having a meeting between a series of Ragabash doing something unusual for most scenes. They're going to a bar and actually getting food. That being said, these different-minded individuals from various tribes are meeting up with Jong Lee for the first time ever, being the first one present since he invited them at the bar. He's currently laid back and in a nice suit for once, instead of one of the ratty ones that he normally wears. It actually looks like it isn't new, but it isn't as worn down or beaten by the elements. Standing there, tie is nice, white shirt underneath, already enjoying right now one of his favorite beers, a Budweiser, because they're cheap.
I just screamed over the fact that he's drinking a fucking Budweiser. At least it's not Keystone. So, the next person to come in is going to be Liam. Um, and he walks into the bar, around, goes and orders a drink, not a beer. He's going to get whiskey on the rocks, probably some Tullamore and he'll I think he probably knows what Zhang Li looks like. So he looks at him and quirks an eyebrow, a lot like what's in his overlay on the main picture on the left. And comes over. I assume he's sitting at a table, yes?
Yes.
So he'll come over and he'll sit down. You are Zhong Li.
And if I recall, you are Liam.
I am. Grins.
We're in my habitat, so let me do the honors of saying, take a seat.
I would be happy to, as he just kind of wiggles in the seat he's already sitting in. And he'll take a sip of his whiskey, set the glass down.
So we should probably keep the conversation relatively light and certain things to a minimum. I hear that there are people looking for me.
Oh my, that, in my experience, is either really good or really not.
Well, considering they want to leech off me, drain some of the lifeblood of my bank account, I would say it's not a good thing.
Ouch.
When he says lifeblood, he's just tapping his neck with two fingers.
He gets his drift, absolutely. He just nods and takes another fucking sip. Like, who else is coming to this shindig?
Well, I've invited a couple of other individuals. Claire would be one of them.
Oh, I haven't seen her in a hot minute.
And Sebastian.
He nods.
I believe those are the remaining similar professions to myself.
Claire is, he kind of thinks for a moment. He's like, what exactly is she to me? Like, I think Reese still considers her as a daughter, so she's just gonna say, Claire is actually my stepdaughter. It's been a little bit since I've seen her, so it'd be good to see her.
So, I don't know much about you, but I've heard some great things.
Well, I'm glad that what you have heard is great. nods. Do you follow Irish music at all?
I listened to a little bit of Latin pop.
That's not me. I am somewhat famous in Europe for my music. I've got a little bit of a presence in the United States and Canada, more Canada than the United States, but I am working on another album. I'm collaborating with some members of our Sept. Says that in a low tone. Should be good. Liam just kind of sits back and waits for whoever else is showing up to show up. Guess I'll go ahead and have Claire show up.
We all know
So yeah,
that Sebastian likes to show fashionably late,
he does. Yes.
and he is bringing the other Ragabash with him. So,
And you're working on the overlay.
no, I'm done.
Oh, are you? Okay. So yeah, Claire. A couple of minutes later, will show up, and she's got a big smile on her face.
You must be Claire.
She nods. I am Claire. She has
Take
a
a seat.
little bit. She's got a little slight French accent because she grew up speaking both French and English, and French was actually her preferred language to speak. So she has a little bit of a French accent.
Makes sense.
And Liam will stand up, and she'll go to Liam and hug him. And then they'll both sit down. And she'll hold her hand out to Jong Lee.
Jong Lee will give it a firm shake.
I'm Claire Rose.
Jong Lee, it's a pleasure to make your acquaintance.
It is nice to meet you as well.
Both of you, pardon my lack of formality this evening, but I figure it's better since we are out and about.
Liam shakes his head. He is just fine with casual. He's like, I don't give a fuck about being formal. And Claire just shrugs. Not a big deal.
So, Claire, I haven't actually heard much about you, and I apologize for not knowing as much as I probably should given our profession.
She smiles. It's okay. I well, I came to the Sept because I was sick. And my now father-in-law went and got me and brought me here. And the only way that I could be saved was I'm gonna assume that the place that they're in is probably the safe like diner slash bar that's right off Sept, so where they can speak openly. So it was like I had to go to Erebus and get cleansed. I was a Black Fury, and then
Jong Lee will hold up a finger at that point. I understand that this place is a relatively okay place to meet, but I'd like to let you know that there are certain people, some friends who are looking for me.
Oh my, what kind of
Yeah.
friends?
The kind that like to, be loafers, leech off of my hospitality, you know.
She'll nod. Well, that unfortunate. But I'm relatively sure they're not gonna get in here. But we should probably err on the side of caution.
Yes, especially since they did get to one of us before when we thought they were secure.
He'll nod. But anyway, it was a weird twist of fate of me getting here, and I'm glad that I'm here. And I am Cleoth again, and no tribe.
Hmm.
I'm going to join the new one.
I hear a lot of that.
I have a special tie to the warden. She smiles softly.
Well, if you're so certain of yourself, could be a good place.
I think it is the place for me.
So what do you plan on doing for them?
Helping those like I was helped. Anyone who needs somebody to talk to, who needs to be pointed in the right direction. She air quotes right, like what would be right for them. Bringing in those that would fit the mindset.
So you want to recruit?
Yeah. I mean, I am a Ragabash. We're good at scouting and recruiting.
There are those who'd argue that another would be better at that sort of profession. Judges, after all, have to make judgment calls. They double as ones who make matches as well. Wouldn't they be better suited to that task than someone like, he says, motioning back and forth between them, us?
I think that each has their ways, their methods of getting their points across. It's not a matter of who is better. It's a matter of who is willing, and each of us have a different way of going about it. So I don't think in terms of who is better than who for what task. It's how are we going to go about getting it done. I don't like to use better than.
Jong Lee nods his head at that, but has a half smile on his face.
Liam sips his whiskey. Just listening.
I mean, from a ground level viewpoint, you're not wrong. It's an unprejudiced one. From a strategic level, though, sure, you can go about solving problems in different ways, but that just reinforces my argument. Some
What's
people are better
yours?
suited to some tasks than others.
A shrug. What's your opinion?
Well, consider. I have a friend named Darcy. You might have heard of him.
She nods.
Fairly skilled. I have another friend named Corey. Might have heard of her.
Have.
Also very skilled. Do I consider them, when it comes to the value of life or the worth that they bring to the nation, to be different? No. They're equal in my eyes. Different positions, different approaches. But much like there is a whole host of tools in the toolbox, some are specialized and are meant to be used in specific situations. In theory, you could take a hammer to jab a bolt through a board. But why?
She smiles. She knows what he's getting at. The point that she's trying to prove is the use of the language involved. And she'll say that. She'll say, of course, some people's skills are more suited for a task than others. But to say that someone is better than someone else because of different skill sets is a language that I prefer not to use. So you go to the person and you say, I would prefer your skills for this task.
But then that makes a statement of opinion rather than claiming that there's a metric, and there is a metric. I can understand that you don't want to perhaps make someone feel that they are lesser.
She nods.
Obviously, at about this time, you're going to get a Shadow Lord.
Yes.
This is quite obviously the time that the Shadow Lord will enter when we are speaking of lesser men.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, he'll quietly slip in with a very, very out of place individual with him. He's got just that enough wide-eyed look that he has new guy painted all over his little face. And he'll come over. And he just has that look he has on his overlay, just, oh hi, here I am. How soon can I politely fucking go?
Sebastian,
Right.
I appreciate that you were able to make it. I apologize. I've already let the others know, but due to the fact that there could be certain friends looking for me, I've been keeping it rather informal.
He'll nod and sit down.
Liam waves.
He'll give him a nod. The much more gregarious childhood guy next to him will wave at him.
So Claire looks to the newcomer and she'll smile to him.
Smile back.
He'll notice that because she doesn't have a tribe right now, she does have some children of Gaia purebreed.
He does an invisible wiggle.
She'll look to him and she'll say, I'm Claire.
And a British accent I can't do right now. He says my name is Killian.
I
He's
find
got a
it.
Londonese. He's got a very highborn London accent.
Oh, nice. So I find it hilarious, out of character, that you have this character named Killian, and I have the person who plays Killian on Once Upon a Time in this scene as well. For Liam's face claim.
But
I'm kind of dying over that. It's great. Um, yeah, and he'll
he
notice that
looks
she's
a
got us.
little bit. He looks a little bit tired, and Sebastian will turn to the group and explain. He's been teaching grammar to a red talent all night. And Gillian will just nod, like, I did that.
Liam's jaw drops, and he points to him. Good on you, boy.
I was a primary school instructor back at home. I didn't know that was a skill set I was going to need when I got here. And they'll just nod.
Claire will nod. When you run into the lupus, yes. Yeah, and he notices she's got a slight French accent.
So I'll look at Jong Lee.
Name's Jong Lee. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Killian Murphy.
Didn't know there was another one of us in the Sept.
I just came with my packmate, Poe. I just got here 2 days ago. I wanted to help out with, well, whenever someone starts throwing around concepts of war. It's always a good idea to have a child of Gaia on hand.
And why would you say that?
Optimally, we do try our hardest to. I know that there's this sentiment in the nation about us not delivering as much as we say. And I understand that, but it's not going to dishearten me from trying to do the task assigned to me. The fact of the matter is we have skill sets that lead us into being some of the best negotiators and mediators of Gaia. And instead of allowing the ill blood that often follows my tribe in these days to discourage me, I just think that it's better I show people what a child of Gaia on his game can do.
So
Beyond
you
that,
come in favor of peace?
I couldn't hear you. What'd you say?
You come in favor of peace?
Peace is not static. It's not something that is assumed or a given. And what one man's peace may not be another man's. I come in favor of reason. I find that to be a little more realistic and something that is a much more attainable goal. Finding a balance in reason. And peace tends to follow it.
Jong Lee is just looking at him.
He gives Jong Lee a polite smile.
Logos versus pathos.
Well, not. I've found that one of the greatest hindrances to negotiations tends to be emotion. So you have to break down and find the truth behind what people need and bring that to the light so that you can work around what they want. Because when men prioritize what they want, usually they'll neglect their needs. That's just an opinion, though. I'm not speaking from a place of authority. I've also found that you can get very, very far by telling people what you want directly and precisely and what you want to see more of. For instance, in this Sept, people are throwing around a lot of language about how they don't want to see this, they don't want to see it. Let me fill that in a little more. They don't want to see spirals on Sept. They don't want to see us forming alliances with, and he'll kind of tap his neck. They don't want to see people failing to understand the nuances of the new litany. And those are all very vocal and valid concerns. But I found that if you reframe it and present back to people what you want to see, such as by saying, I want to see more security and discretion taken into consideration with the relations on Black Spiral Dancers in the Sept. I want to see people I'll kind of think a moment. I want to see people take the time to embrace the reframing of the litany. I found it gets you further than just saying what you don't want and taking things away from people.
Claire nods and smiles. And Liam will nod at that too, like he agrees.
So you wish to apply a more moral standpoint to reason.
I wouldn't say that because I've seen where applying, especially liberally applying a more moral standpoint to things can lead to regimes and the mightiest voice being the one that it all falls back onto, which isn't always the best choice.
True. Morality is subjective. So let me rephrase. Then maybe a more ethical approach.
That's fair. He'll nod. He'll cede that to him. Sebastian, being the dick he is, just shrugs and says, I think the world needs to burn and I need to be the one holding the matches, but we're not here to talk about that now, are we?
Maybe we are. I mean,
Liam
after
will
all,
smirk.
isn't that our job to tell the Emperor that he has no clothes, or if the house needs burning, set it on fire?
He'll nod.
Sometimes with everyone still inside of it.
He likes that approach. And we'll give him a seltzer salute with his gin and tonic.
Jong Lee will give a slight nod of his head. So you and I are two sides of the same coin then, Killian.
Smile softly.
The question is whether or not one is willing to adhere to a stronger code of ethics or not.
I think at the end of the day, to quote the Boondock Saints in a paraphrase, that there are simple principles that any man of any faith can understand. And I have a baseline that I really don't consider that far to stray from. And I understand that there are gray areas. Not everything is black. Actually, nothing is black and white, really. But what kind of shrug?
I can appreciate that you actually have faith.
I have faith in humanity at the end of the day. As I said, I'm a primary instructor. And so I often deal with children. That's what I deal with. That's my life. I'm an educator. So I'm aware of how flexible the mind is and its formation and how beautiful a creature humans are, I suppose.
So your faith is in humanity and, by extension, us.
He nods. As opposed to something I can't put my hand on, like a metaphoric god, or I'll just shrug. I'm a bit of a humanist. I have faith in humanity. Even if, as Sebastian puts it, it all has to burn down to the ground first.
I'll be frank. I do not share your faith in anything.
He smiles as though that doesn't bother him.
Of course, that's where we differ, because as a result, you can believe in ethical codes.
He nods.
I find that commendable.
Thank you. They notice, by the way, he's drinking, he's not drinking an alcoholic beverage.
Unfortunately, I believe your efforts are going to be largely unrewarded in the next few days, mostly due to the slow grinding nature of politics, rather than any malice.
He'll smile and nod. I'm settling in anyway. I got the soul scared out of me last night. A red talent decided to grab me by the scruff and drag me to his son to apparently give him a vocabulary lesson.
Well, then you're going to be ready and on your guard for what exists in the city.
A lot. My packmate has a bit more experience with that. Before we packed up together, he ran with a pack that specifically dealt with that problem.
Well, I'll be dealing with the other problem that we are having to face right now.
Will not. Please, don't let me take center stage, though. Somebody else must have something to say.
you'll find that I prefer to listen myself, but I have a feeling that since I called what turns out to be the four of us here, or five of us here, I believe by custom and tradition I'm obligated to keep the conversation going.
He'll nod.
So one of the reasons I called you all here is because I believe that a certain ritual challenge is going to be underway soon that I myself will need to participate in order to be promoted. I felt it necessary to speak with everyone who shares a profession with me so that I might be able to learn and benefit from differing views and opinions, or at least be able to recall what those who work towards the same aims as I, their methodologies consist of. So part of the reason I've brought you all here was I believe the phrase would be get to know you. And I've learned much so far. So, as per the nature of social transaction, what would you like to know about me?
Clara will look to him. What brought you to San Diego?
He smiles at that. So we're going to start with an easy question. Because I developed something of a infamy within my own tribe in former Sept. He's just sitting there silently now, staring at her, just placid.
Sorry, I'm having a bit of an issue with my voice too. Liam will kind of look at him. So what are your goals here?
In relation to the Sept,
Sept? Regular life? What do you want to do?
mostly my job. But I guess that's a little vague. In fairness, most of my personal goals have very little broader impact. I'm merely looking to the past, seeking the tools necessary to ensure my family's survival into the future. As for broader agendas, I have been attempting to ensure that those who are seeking to join the new family that is forming are certain as to their decision and choices. Making sure that they understand the decision that they're making, not because of consequences for them, but because of consequences for the future of the organization as a whole. I am attempting to push other members of the Sept into learning to embrace and enjoy regular exercise as well. And then, in a more immediate turn, I am trying to disrupt the capability of another Sept to wage offensive actions permanently.
He nods.
I serve at the goddess's pleasure and as needed.
Both Liam and Claire nod at that. Like, can get behind that.
I think at this point in time, most people around the Sept know this already, however. I don't have nearly the same ambition for things that many of the other members aspire to. He glances over at Sebastian for a second and then back at the rest of the group. One might say that a better example of someone with ambition would be Veronica.
Veronica has, Sebastian will say, changed much in the last few weeks. Sebastian will sip his drink. She has had her focus reprioritized. To be honest, I was shocked that she joined my camp. I didn't expect that from her. I thought she was certainly going to go to the Lords of Summit or something to that effect, but
I'm not familiar with the inner workings of your particular hierarchy.
good.
Yet.
He smiles.
But am I to assume then that you feel she has become more focused on Sept security.
Veronica has become focused on the goals that, and I find it a good thing. This isn't a judgment. Go beyond herself. Security is certainly something that is a priority to her, but again, she's becoming a mother. She's pregnant. She's going to have a child. She's getting married. She has her own family to fight for now, instead of it being a more given thing. It's something that she's earned, if that makes sense.
I find myself mildly disappointed.
Why is that?
Well, she was one of the most driven people I knew when it came to a personal approach.
Oh, Jong Lee. And he just leaves it at that and takes a drink. Killian's brows go up like, what the fuck?
Liam smirks. Takes a sip of his drink.
Killian just kind of tilts his head and was like, okay.
Yeah, Claire kind of has the same reaction, like, oh,
I
that was
don't know
pretty
what just happened there, but okay. The look on Killian's face.
pretty much.
So, Killian just kind of wrings his napkin in his hands for a moment, like, oh boy.
It was just interesting considering I'm just going to have to figure out, I believe, another horse to back then.
I came into this. And he'll kind of narrow his eyes a moment and thought. Then he just shakes his head. It almost seems as though he's not dismissing Jong Lee now, but he doesn't have as much esteem for him as he could have possibly done when he walked in. Like I said, he's not writing him off, but it's definitely a misstep on Jong Lee's part with Sebastian.
Sorry, I'm looking at my sheet right now. I hate that.
Oh, right. We have an Athro Shadow Lord at the table. Oops.
Right, and that's why I am looking at my sheet right now just to double check something.
Killian's about an inch from doing the Child of Gaia thing. Hey, guys.
Sebastian, may I ask you something?
I'll look at him.
What do you believe in? And I don't mean ethically, like we were talking about before, but more regarding the new direction of the litany.
Any direction of the litany? He'll shrug. Like any other set of governing laws. Laws are made to protect people from government. It's what my father taught me. Remember, my father is the head of the Judge of Dooms. Well, the eldest in their camp. So I've spent my entire life very well aware of our laws. The fact of the matter is laws have never and will never trump instinct. We can pretend to liberally apply laws to us so that we can make ourselves feel safer, better, any of those things. But at the end of the day, humans are animals, just as every other animal walking this earth, and they have instinct. And when those instincts are repressed enough or override reason or any other just crack to the delicate balance that keeps us a society, he'll air quote, doesn't matter what the laws are. Laws are not infallible. And justice is, he'll roll his eyes. People will always, in the end, be animals. And the only thing that you can do at the end is bear that in mind and prepare for it. Prepare to protect yourself. Prepare to protect those close to you. So I really don't give a damn what the laws are. I follow them because I have to. I think this set of laws is certainly more reasonable towards our people. I can argue them all day as I argued the last ones. People say, oh, well, it was better for the nation for us to include the Metis as something more than second-class citizens. Well, yeah, but unfortunately, we also still have the Veil, and when your precious little fucking prized pet runs off Sept Krenos because you've let your guard down and forget that they're fucking monsters from the womb, sorry. By every classic sense, claws, sharp teeth, fangs, covered in fur, monsters to humanity. And now you've got a veil breach on your hand that you've got to slowly piece back together. Or the kinfolk get neglected because now everyone is deciding that they can marry their packmate, as I have seen happening at times and in certain septs. I could go on about this all day. Jesus Christ, I think I'm just going to drink instead. He'll pick his drink up. Like, down that bitch. Killian says, you sound a bit jaded. And I'll kind of put two fingers really close together.
Well, I mean, life is nothing more than just consequences. It's always
Snap
about
his fingers and point.
it's just about what consequences you're willing to accept, what consequences that you are willing to bear. And as I have been arguing with certain members of the Sept, if you aren't willing or ready to accept the consequences of your actions or your decisions, then you are not ready to move forward and in some cases lead.
Killian will clear his throat. And he'll say, that's actually something that we often focus on in primary school education. The follow through with consequence is very important. If a child is left to have action without consequence, then there's no direction or molding. I'm not saying that children need to be cookie cutter. That's actually quite far from what I think needs to happen. But well, can I give an example?
By all means.
I've noticed in the United States that you guys, for those who are American, have this really, really strong clutch on your freedom of speech. Well, the fact of the matter is freedom of speech exists in most places. And I don't think people really understand in America what the freedom of speech is. It's that the government will not censor, as I understand. Again, I'm British. I'm not going to say it as American would, your ability to speak your mind. But on a personal level, on a human level interaction, people seem to think that freedom of speech means that you are also free of the consequence of what you have to say from those who are not of the governing body. And that's just not true. The fact of the matter is I could say right now, all hail the Nazis. And I mean, the fact of the matter is I'm going to have about 5 people rush to punch my face, probably. And it's because my speech is not free of consequence. And that very simple principle is something that people have to learn. That it's what I teach children. I teach children from a very young age that their speech is the first thing that is going to it's kind of the first gauge of their consequence and the action of consequence and how to teach the abstract and principle of it. And so I understand where you're coming from with consequences, is what I'm saying, Jong Lee.
I appreciate it. I myself am perhaps in a fortunate position. For now, all I have to concentrate upon is my Septs, maybe even my family's survival. Consequences are much easier to deal with when you have less responsibility.
If I may, I am feeling as though you had an unexpected consequence in what you said to Sebastian. It's kind of led to a little bit of a strain here. And I'd really like to figure out what is causing that, if you don't mind.
Not at all. I'm normally one to let things lie.
Yeah, but we're kind of air quote at war right now, and honestly, bad blood between, especially us Ragabash, can be a bad thing. So I'd really like to see. I'd just like to figure out what caused the disconnect, and maybe help to smooth it over if we could.
Considering my station and my position, I believe then that my viewpoint on the matter, whether I am moved or not, is less valuable than Sebastian's. For if he were to order me to do anything, I would follow without hesitation.
Well, It seems as though Sebastian had when you said that you were disappointed in his sister, it seems as though that is what caused him to take offense. Can you elaborate why you're disappointed in his sister?
Oh, I never said I was disappointed in her. I was disappointed in her choice.
What choice was it?
To pursue other directions. It is neither positive or negative in my mind. Those were not only her decisions, but that will not make her a lesser or better person for it. It will make her a different person with a set of capabilities and priorities that are aligned in a new direction. I can appreciate the desire to go in those directions. Family seems to be in a much less capital F term than I have been using this evening. Very important to members of the Sept.
Sebastian will tilt his head and he'll say, if I may, I think my offense came from the fact that I am just so goddamn used to people seeing a woman as lesser because she's chosen to focus on her family. When I, in fact, find that sometimes one of the most ferocious things in the world can be a wife, mother, a woman protecting that which she cares most about. I know Veronica has gotten some shame for choosing this path that she's on, and I think that that's disgusting. I don't see why. I suppose what I'm trying to say is I don't see why we no, I've said what it is. I'm tired of women earning disappointment or suddenly being valued as less because they chose to shift their priority to family. He'll shrug. I watched my mother go through that, and I'm just tired of that. And Killian will hold a finger up, and he'll say, but I don't believe that that's where Jong Lee is coming from. Am I correct, Jong Lee?
You are indeed correct. For me, it's a matter of male, female. I barely understand those distinctions that people seem to be holding up. It comes down to if one is in a certain position of leadership, male, female, young, old, it doesn't matter. The more connections that we have, personal, direct connections that we have with other people, the harder it becomes to make a pathos-free decision. And there becomes a difficulty making certain choices. And there are certain choices that those individuals should never be forced to make.
He can tell that Sebastian is listening. He's not ignoring him. He can tell not only is not Sebastian listening, but he's kind of softening a little bit.
My job is not just to ask questions or to mock or even to scout. Similar to yourself, my job is to teach. In Shinto, there is a belief that we all have a place in the world. Some of us are less fortunate than others, and our place is to be the example of what not to do when riding a bicycle in traffic.
A lot of that.
For now, I've had the good fortune of being the individual who's been able to teach the lesson of how, when operating alone or in the shadows, what to do. But there could come a day where my place in the wheel has come to an end, and the new lesson I am teaching is the grand mistake of such actions.
Sebastian he'll sip his drink, and Jong Lee and Killian can tell he it's water under the bridge now. He's fine now. Misunderstanding clear.
Jong Lee looks as passive as always.
Apparently, Sebastian is exceptionally overprotective of his sister.
Right?
Like, Lord, man, I was ready to kill you.
But see, so Claire understands that because she is thinking to herself that if someone had said something about Theo like that, she would have had the same reaction. So, uh, oh my God, she is completely
Killian looks
protective
like
of her brother.
Killian looks as though he's very happy he got to flex his child of Gaia bones, but he doesn't want to do it again. He's like, I'm glad I got the child of Gaia. Let's not do that again. Sips his soda.
Killian, one thing you should understand about me, though.
Mhm.
I have long since learned to accept any consequences of my action, no matter inadvertent or otherwise.
Appreciated. He'll nod. I learned a long time ago that humans never really grow up. They just start paying bills. So if you sort of look at us all like children tumbling around on the recess playground, it gets you kind of far. And he'll nod.
It does.
Liam and Claire both nod at that. They agree. Like, yep.
But
Liam's
some
like,
children.
I never grew up. Fine. I'm fine.
And some children grow up in war zones or surrounded by death.
True. My father was well, he didn't come home. Let's put it like that. When I was young.
Which brings me back to my original points. I've been trying to keep a watchful eye on individuals who, like myself, are free of those sorts of attachments.
I tried that for a while when I was younger. Without going into too much politics, my father got himself blown up in Northern Ireland. And he didn't come home. And my mom had to raise 5 children by herself. She was a school teacher too. And When I saw her crying every night because she couldn't even bring herself to touch his side of the bed, I thought, yeah, I'm not doing that to myself. But for me, and it doesn't seem as though this has done this to you, but for me, it just turned me cold. And I didn't like the person I became. And when I was first looking at the tribes, it was the Chalagaya who came to me and said that all of that anger and hurt, resentment and spite I had inside of myself was so destructive, and it was destroying me. It was poisoning me from the inside. And so instead of ridiculing me about it, or telling me I was a bad person, or I was going to become a bad person, or things like that, he brought out the good in me, I guess, is what he said. And he took this angry fucking kid from, maybe not the best house, and he gave me an opportunity. And he put into me what I think I've given back to him. So I suppose that's why I don't have so much of your viewpoint in connections. Because if it weren't for the connections in my life and the relationships I've built, yes, although losing one almost destroyed me, another one at the same time saved me. And then let me get to the point where I became a teacher, was able to influence the children around me. So I guess I see it from both sides.
It's not a judgment on whether that's a good or bad thing. It's just a matter of it's necessary to find other individuals who can shoulder this level of burden, whether through their own choice or whether they feel that the choice has been thrust upon them. I would prefer those who choose this path freely.
Do you regret the way you feel, the path you're on?
He stops and thinks. I find what I do is distasteful. Necessary, but distasteful. I would prefer that there was another path to take for many of our actions. You spoke earlier about phrasing things in what do you desire? And I've agreed with that sort of perspective my whole life. Know what you want, what your goal is. And if you realize you're couching your goal in terms of merely what can I take away, you are limiting yourself to hurting others for no apparent reason.
No.
I take away things from other people because I have a goal of something I want to achieve. And the best method, whether that's in some cases the parameter is the most efficient, the greatest effect, or the least amount of input required to define best. But the best outcome ends up often being taking something away. But do I regret the person that I am? the life that I have lived. Why would I regret? I chose to do what I did. I've chosen to live how I have lived. Even if they had put a gun up to my head loaded with bullets, I would have still had the choice to say no. So there's little reason to regret.
He nods.
I find it's more appropriate to regret things like missing a workout because I was stuck on a plane flying from Connecticut to California. Things that are completely out of your control, such as what other people are going to do and the actions they take, well, that's out of your control. And I can find that regrettable.
He nods.
And if you meant what is my preference, I would have preferred that all of this had gone without as much bloodshed as will be coming, but other people have made regrettable decisions in and out of the Sept. Well, considering the consequences and yet believing that they understood what those consequences would be. I believe the alpha of my pack made one of those decisions. I believe. And you can tell the alpha this himself. The alpha of our Sept made one of those decisions.
He looks over at Claire for a second, knowing that that's her father-in-law.
Right? I mean, well, and it's Liam's brother-in-law too, so
Right?
they're both very tied to the Alpha Sept. Both of their brows go up a little bit. Liam will say, and what decision was that?
Jong Lee looks at him, completely deadpan at this point. The decision that was negotiated ending with he looks around to make sure that there's absolutely no one who's going to know what he's saying nearby. I'd like to just activate a gift real quick. A gift that, and this is why I asked this before. It's a Philodox level 1 gift that a certain Black Spiral might have taught him.
Oh, hey.
He's double checking to make sure no one here is like, I don't know, a leech. Or
Sure, you can activate the gift.
excellent. And double checking the roll because I, like a crazy person, had the book open to Ragabash and was wondering why I can't find my gifts on my character sheet on.
I mean, because wow.
Yeah, I was like, I was like, why do I have all these gifts? And then my brain realized you're staring at the PDF file for the book, my friend. And so
Yeah,
now I'm
those
on
are
the
not.
Philodox page instead of thinking I'm looking at my character sheet. Yes, I have rank 5.
It is perception primal urge at difficulty 6.
All right. And I'm going to spend willpower just to be sure. Because botching is bad. Are you okay if I roll in scenes 1?
Yeah. Fine.
Difficulty 6. I got 2 successes.
Okay. So 2 successes. There are no leeches or any thing of that sort in here. It's just you guys. No, there aren't any normal humans or anything in here either.
I think it was I feel it was a mistake to put the dancers into the new tribe. I believe they should have been allowed to join as a whole based upon their own merits and foibles.
Liam furrows his brow at Jong Lee. Why do you why do you feel that that was Emil's decision?
For good or for ill.
That was not
The
his decision to make. He didn't make that decision. He allowed the idea to be explored, but he did not make the decision.
Which, unfortunately, Killian will say, because he is Alpha of the Sept, makes it seem as though it was his decision.
in the basic chain of command, he is responsible for the decisions that are made by people below him. Should I do something as foolish and reckless as going outside of this establishment, becoming Krenos, and then running through a live televised football game or some sort of rock concert in front of international cameras? My decision not only reflects upon him, but there is that responsibility to the actions and outcomes and consequences of what I have done. As would be right, I would be the one who would be punished. But to the nation, to people outside of our sept, a degree of that will weigh upon him. It's why we don't just let cubs go running around wherever, and we assign them, in many septs, a din parent, if I am not mistaken.
Killian nods.
Liam does
So,
nod.
so while I do not fault him in the sense of I believe consequences should have been placed upon him, the decision ultimately reflects. And due to the perceptions of that, we find ourselves where we are now. I'm not blaming deaths on him. I'm saying the animosity that is felt, however. There were
Unfortunately,
your thoughts.
unfortunately, nobody. It's impossible to make everybody happy. Someone is going to have a problem with something somewhere along the way, always.
Oh, I completely agree. However, I felt
Unfortunately, one of the burdens of leadership is that there will be things attributed to you. And it's just simply one of the consequences of his role. He didn't stop it from happening.
Liam nods.
Now, as to whether Jong Lee's opinion is... please, he'll say to Jong Lee, don't take it the wrong way. It's, in the end, an opinion.
one would hope that other people would take it as such, considering
My opinion on it is I am interested to see where it goes, but I'm not levying a certain positive or negative aspect to it until I see more.
Sebastian puts his hands on the table and says, my opinion is a lot of them need to be burned to the ground, and I need to be the one holding the matches. And Kelly looks over at him as like, you have a theme, don't you?
Liam chuckles. That seems to be your answer to everything, doesn't it?
I was a spiral.
I know you were.
A wave. I did my time in Erebus. I know how hard it is to break away. And if you're telling me that a lot of them are going to manage to just trot out now that it's convenient to everyone and because fucking Alistair Cameron says so. Yeah, sure, okay. He'll just shrug.
Well, for my part, I'm not ascribing positive or negative either when I say better, as we have discussed between Claire and myself earlier. Instead, I feel that there was a strategically more viable approach that would have resulted in a different set of consequences, both positive and negative. As for burning them to the ground, as that is the job of others to make that judgment call, I will nominally be leaving it up to them. But in my particular instance, I am watching individuals closely.
As well you should, Sebastian says.
I don't believe it's it's a secret at this point, but I did join the pack that I am forming under the condition that members of it understood should they step out of line and endanger the nation, the Sept, or individual members of the Sept due to their affiliation and become, shall we say, rogue, they will not make it more than a few feet.
Sebastian will tilt his head and he'll say, Talia Petrova is going to execute one of them.
May I ask which one?
Same as Xavier. His mother was Seeker. Seeker of the Ancient Ways. He'll shake his head. He's a lost cause. And he hurt my son. I'd be doing it myself, but Petrova claimed rights to it.
Well, should members of my pack go in a similar direction, You have my word that, again, they will not be making it very far. And should they put up resistance that I cannot bring them in alive, they will be brought for posthumous judgment to the nearest half moon.
Hey, you know what? He'll just, nod. And Killian chews his lip.
As for the Sept proper, I have found this conversation to be rather enlightening.
Killian will raise a brow and say, "Have you?"
Yes, I have learned a great deal about the others who practice the same tradecraft.
He nods.
Hopefully, I've been able to assist your understanding of myself as well.
Both Sebastian and Killian will nod.
Well, and hopefully, once this situation is resolved, a man of my talents is going to find that he has little to do with his time. So, lady, gentlemen, I guess if we don't have anything else we need to talk about, I should go pay the check.
Killian will nod. He'll say, "Do you mind if I get the tip?"
If that is what you desire, feel free.
Liam fucking bursts out laughing.
His brows go up.
Claire smirks. She understands. And he just shakes his head and finishes his whiskey, gets up. 2-finger salute. I'll see y'all later. He walks out.
Killian puts down a 20, so confused he doesn't understand life right now. Sweet summer child, the children of Gaia.
Yep.
Sebastian Raya, before you go, though,
I'll look at him.
considering what has transpired tonight, you are the first person to be visibly to others greatly offended by my actions or my words.
I think that as beautiful and perfect as this package you set forward is, and it is, you are, wow, okay? I think you're running from something. And it's internal. And that's okay. It's fine. But yeah. And no judgment, as you seem to be fond of saying. It's not a judgment. I would just really like to see the real you. Because I just don't feel like the person in front of me is. I'm not saying you're inauthentic. I'm not saying that you're two-faced, you're not presenting. I feel that you believe you are the person that's sitting in front of me, okay? But I don't know. Something about you.
Which is why I formally come forward. I, Jong Lee, backwards compatibility. No moon, child of cockroach. Officially challenge you for the right to become a fostering of the nation. Questions the stars, Raya.
I'm gonna need to think for your challenge. I'll have it for you within 24 hours. And he'll nod.
Jong Lee will nod as well and lift his half-finished glass of beer and then down it.
And he'll down his. And Killian is looking at all of this like, oh my god. I spent too much time on a just child of Gaia Sept.
Claire looks to Killian a little sympathetically, like,
Scoots
poor
closer.
thing. You poor thing.
I'll look at Claire like, would you happen to need a new gay best friend?
Actually, yes, would.
He'll wrap his arms around her. Come,
She'll
hold me.
squeeze. He holds him.
And to make it fair, and this is to be at full disclosure. I have a feeling that whatever you put forward for me will not involve as much shall we say physical conflict with an individual.
He'll just shake his head.
He nods his head at that. Then so you know, when it comes to other fields of pursuit, I believe I fall into the opposite of Darcy and Aiden on the gregarious scale.
I've never in my entire life been more tempted to challenge someone to secure a date in my entire life. And Killian's jaw drops. I'm not going to. God, I'm tempted.
What?
But I do have ways to cheat if I need to, he says with a half smile as he stands. Let me go get the waitress.
He'll smile.
Is that a good stopping place?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so ends another session of Sept of the Howling Winds. Thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. Have a good evening.